welcome to Noonzzz. Here, sleep doesn't come from silence, but from a gentle story. You don't have to fall asleep just yet. Just stay a little longer. Everything will feel lighter soon. You arrive in Bellhollow just as the day begins to fold itself into evening. The road into town is narrow and unhurried, its cobblestones worn smooth by years of gentle steps and quiet afternoons. On either side, hedges sway with the faintest movement of air, releasing the scent of lemon balm and something faintly sweet, like clover honey. Beyond the hedges stretch soft meadows, their grasses tipping into gold under the slanting light. A low stone wall runs alongside part of the lane, the stones rounded and warm from the sun, holding the day's comfort the way hands hold a cup of tea. The first thing you hear is not the sound of voices, but the low, even murmur of the creek that threads its way through the center of the village. Over this soft backdrop comes the occasional creak of a shop sign in the breeze, and somewhere farther in, the muffled clink of cups being set on saucers. No one seems in a hurry. The rhythm of Bellhollow feels like a breath held just long enough to be noticed, then let out with ease. You pause on the rise before the square. The view is like a small painting, roofs with their quiet slopes, windows open just enough to let the air move through. A few chimneys letting go of the day's last curls of smoke. The lamplighter has begun his rounds, walking with steady steps, from post to post, touching each lamp with a small brass rod until it blooms with a honey-colored glow. The square itself is cobbled in soft shades of grey and amber, its stones worn to a low shine. A bakery sits on the corner, door propped open with a polished river rock. Even from here, you can catch the warmth of bread nutty, faintly sweet, with a whisper of citrus peel. A chalkboard outside the bakery lists tomorrow's breads in a tidy hand: oat and honey, rosemary loaf, spelt and fig. Across from the bakery is a small bookshop with wide front windows. Inside, the golden lamplight turns the shelves into neat silhouettes. On a low cushion in the display window, a silver-grey cat is curled, its tail wrapped close, paws tucked beneath, eyes half closed in that contented way cats keep. A ceramic bowl of water sits just outside the door, beside a little sign that reads, "For any friend who passes." You turn toward the sound of the creek and follow the curve of the cobblestones until you find the weathered spoon. A tea room with pale green shutters and a door that opens under the soft chime of a brass bell. The air inside is warm and fragrant steamed leaves, dried blossoms, a trace of honey. Behind the counter, a man with a neat beard and eyes as calm as the evening itself greets you. His voice is low and steady when he says, "Welcome. Find a seat near the window if you like. The view is best this time of day." You choose the window seat, where you can watch the willows leaning toward the creek. Their long green fingers trail close to the water, and the reflection wavers in small, slow ripples. The man brings a pot of tea called lavender drift. The porcelain pot is warm to the touch, and when he pours, The scent resembles lavender, a thread of vanilla, something fresh and green beneath it all. You cradle the cup in your hands, feeling the heat soak into your palms and up through your arms. The first sip is soft, floral at the edges, with a coolness that comes only after you breathe. Outside, the square has settled into the gentle work of evening. A woman in a cardigan chooses pears from a wooden crate, lifting each one to her nose before placing it carefully in her bag. A child hops from stone to stone along the edge of the fountain, counting softly. The lamplighter passes again, heading toward the far end of the street, where the lamps have yet to glow. The tea lingers on your tongue, each swallow leaving a light sweetness behind. On the table sits a small dish of clover honey. You dip the spoon, watching the amber ribbon fold back into itself before stirring just enough into your cup. The honey's warmth deepens the lavender, and with each sip, the rest of the day falls quietly away. Somewhere in the tea room, a clock ticks not in a rush, just a polite reminder of time's presence. The shelves along the far wall are lined with jars, each labeled in careful script: chamomile, mint, lemon, verbena, elderflower, blackberry leaf. You imagine that each has its own story, its own season, when it is most itself. When you finish your tea, the man refills your pot without asking. His quiet gesture feels as natural as the breeze that stirs the curtains. You stay until the light outside shifts fully into evening, the sky deepening into a dusky blue scattered with the first soft stars. Stepping out, you find the silver-grey cat now sitting on the tea room's doorstep, blinking slowly at you. You crouch and run your hand along its back, the fur warm and smooth. The cat leans into your touch before returning to its post, as if it has always belonged here. The path to your lodging, Willow Loft, follows the creek. The earth underfoot is soft and steady, and the willows brush your shoulder in passing. Fireflies blink here and there in the grass, small and patient. The guest house comes into view, its windows lit with a quiet glow, the sign swinging gently on its hinges. Inside, the innkeeper greets you with a nod, leading you up a short staircase to a room overlooking the water. The quilt on the bed is a patchwork of blue and cream, its stitches neat and strong. A carafe of water waits on the bedside table, with a slice of lemon floating near the rim. The open window lets in the creek's steady song, cool air curling gently across the floorboards. You sit by the window for a while, watching the dark settle into the trees. A moth rests on the screen, and somewhere below, footsteps pass on the path. You write a few lines in your notebook, not to remember, but to let the calm settle into words. When you finally lie down, the bed meets you like a shoreline taking in the tide. You breathe deeply, the quilt holding its quiet weight over you, the creek whispering beyond the glass. Bellhollow keeps its watch outside, and you drift into the night as if it has been waiting for you. You wake to the slow brightness of morning in Bellhollow. The light arrives gently, not with a rush, but in soft folds through the linen curtains. It brushes across the quilt, a patchwork of blue and cream, and lays itself along the floorboards, in pale gold. The window is still open a little, and the creek's voice is steady, joined now by the faint chatter of sparrows in the willows. The air smells like dew on grass, and the faint, sweet trace of bread baking somewhere nearby. You stretch under the quilt, feeling the cotton loosen its warmth. The wooden floor is cool under your bare feet as you stand, the kind of cool that makes you breathe a little deeper. On the small table by the window, the carafe of water waits, beads of condensation catching the light. You pour a glass, the lemon slice turning lazily in the clear. Cold water downstairs. The front room of Willow Loft is still and tidy. The innkeeper nods to you from behind the counter, a morning paper folded under one hand. The bakery's just setting out their first loaves, he says, as if passing on a small secret. You step outside into the quiet street, where the air still carries the freshness of dawn. The bakery door is propped open again, the same river stone holding it there. Inside, the shelves are lined with loaves that still give off thin threads of steam oat and honey, a dark rye, a crusty bowl with sprigs of rosemary tucked into the scored top. The woman behind the counter wears a soft grey apron, her hands dusted with flour. She wraps a small loaf for you in brown paper and ties it with a strand of twine, the knot quick but neat. You wander toward the square, the warm bread cradled in your hands, and find a bench near the fountain. The water falls in a calm sheet, and the sound blends with the muted hum of the village waking. A man on a bicycle coasts past, a wicker basket balanced with jars of milk. A pair of children walk together, each carrying a satchel and speaking in low voices, as if the day might overhear them. The bookshop is open now, its windows clearer in the morning light. The silver-grey cat is gone from the display, but you find it curled on the counter inside, watching the owner arrange a stack of books by size. The shop smells of paper and faint lavender, perhaps from a sachet kept somewhere between the shelves. You run your fingers along the spines, feeling the texture of cloth bindings and embossed titles. A thin volume catches your eye, Herbs and Their Quiet Hours. You take it to the counter, and the owner wraps it in brown paper with a practiced fold. When you step outside, the sunlight has deepened, spilling over the rooftops and into the narrow lanes. You follow one that curves away from the square, past a row of cottages with painted shutters, sage green, pale blue, sunflower yellow. Each garden has its own scent, mint spilling over the edge of a pot, roses heavy with dew, thyme drying on a wooden rack. The lane opens to a meadow where bellflowers sway in the light wind, their petals nodding in a slow, shared rhythm. You find a place to sit in the grass, the bread beside you, the book in your lap. The ground is soft and faintly warm, and every so often a cloud passes, dimming the light in a way that feels like the sky pausing for breath. Bees move from bloom to bloom, their wings making a sound that blends into the air itself. You open the book and read about rosemary liking the sun, mint preferring shade, lavender needing the company of stones to keep its roots dry. The words, move at their own pace, leaving space between sentences for the meadow to speak. When you close it, you lean back on your hands and look toward the hills, their green edges soft against the pale blue sky. The walk back to the square is slow, the bread's warmth fading to a pleasant memory in your hands. The fountain glints in the midday sun, and a new scent drifts from the weathered spoons, something with chamomile and orange peel, steeping for anyone who steps inside. The cat has returned to its cushion in the display window, one paw twitching as it dreams. You think you might spend the afternoon there, at the window table with a pot of tea, watching the village go about its day. There is no schedule in Bellhollow, only the gentle pull of places that wait without impatience. When you reach Willow Loft again, the innkeeper is arranging small vases of wildflowers on the table's white clover, buttercups, a single sprig of lavender in each. He smiles when you pass, as if to say that in Bellhollow, every day is already enough, and there is nothing more to do but notice it. After lunch, the village settles into a softer rhythm, as if everyone agrees that the afternoon is a place best approached slowly. You step outside into the warm air, the sun leaning toward its gentler arc. The light has lost its sharp edges, and everything it touches, stone walls, the leaves of the willows, the ripples of the creek, seems to hum with a low contentment. The street is quiet enough that you can hear the whisper of the wind through the eaves, the creak of a wooden shutter adjusting itself in the light breeze. A narrow lane behind the square draws your attention. It curves lazily between cottages, the kind of path that promises nothing more than its own unfolding. Pots of geraniums line the steps of one house, their petals the color of summer fruit. Another cottage has a small table set outside, with two mismatched chairs and a teapot, waiting under a linen cloth. No one is there, but the scene feels as though the people will return at any moment. Mid-conversation, to pour the next cup, you follow the lane until it opens into a garden you haven't seen before. It's walled in by low stones and an ivy gate that swings easily when you touch it. Inside, the air smells faintly of rosemary and freshly turned soil. There's a narrow path made of flat river stones, their surfaces still warm. On either side, beds of herbs stretch in tidy rows, sage with its soft, grey-green leaves, mint bright and alert, thyme creeping close to the ground. Bees hum in and out of the lavender, and you pause to watch one circle a bloom before diving deep into its purple folds. A wooden bench sits in the shade of a pear tree. You lower yourself onto it, the seat warmed by the day, and closed your eyes for a moment. The quiet here is layered, first the bees, then the faint rustle of leaves, and beneath it all, the steady, barely their breath of the earth itself. You could fall asleep like this, with the sun resting across your knees and the scent of mint lifting every so often in the breeze. When you open your eyes, you notice a small table at the far end of the garden, holding a row of glass jars. Each is filled with something different: dried petals, bundles of leaves, seeds in tiny paper envelopes. A handwritten note beside them reads, "Take what you need, leave what you can. You choose a small packet of chamomile seeds, their lightness, almost nothing in your palm, and in return, you place the folded bookmark from your morning's reading into the basket. It seems right that things should trade places like this. The walk back takes you past the creek again. The water is slow now, reflecting the deeper blue of the sky. A dragonfly hovers above the surface, darting forward in brief, precise movements. You stop on the small wooden bridge, leaning on the smooth rail, and watch its shadow dance across the ripples. There's a smell of baking from somewhere downstream, perhaps a tart cooling on a windowsill, or scones just taken from the oven. You wander toward the weathered spoon without quite meaning to. The door is open, and the same gentle bell greets you. Inside, the air is cooler than outside, with the faint scent of chamomile and orange peel you noticed earlier. The man behind the counter offers you a smile. "Mint meadow today?" he asks, and you nod. The tea arrives in a pale blue cup, steam rising in a slow ribbon. The mint is bright but soft, the kind that lingers more in the breath than on the tongue. From your seat by the window, you watch as the shadows lengthen across the square. A boy sits on the fountain's edge, sketching in a notebook, his pencil moving in quick, certain lines. A woman walks by with a basket of laundry, the folded fabrics smelling faintly of sun. The lamplighter passes early, checking the lamps, though they're not yet needed, and you wonder if he likes the way they look in daylight. The tea cools in your hands, and you sip slowly until the cup is empty. Outside, the silver-grey cat has taken its place on the tea room's step again, blinking in the lowering light. You step out and scratch behind its ears, feeling the soft purr rumble beneath your fingers. By the time you return to Willow Loft, the sky has shifted toward evening's first colors, lavender at the edges, a deepening gold where the sun dips behind the hills. The innkeeper is lighting a single candle on each table in the front room, their flames small but steady. He nods to you as you pass, and you take the stairs slowly, letting the day settle behind you like the last notes of a quiet song. In your room, the window is still open to the creek. The sound is unchanged, but it feels different, now less like a greeting, more like a good night. You place the chamomile seeds on the table beside your bed, a small reminder of the garden and its gentle invitation. The air is cooler now, and you pull the quilt over your legs as you sit by the window, watching the light fade from the water. Evening in Bellhollow doesn't arrive all at once. It drifts in, the way steam lifts from a cooling cup, touching everything with the same patient hand. You breathe it in, and it feels as though you've been here for a long time, even though the day is just beginning to end. The afternoon drifts into that quiet seam of time the village keeps for itself. The hour when colors soften and conversations do to. You step out from Willow Loft with the easy intention of a walk and no destination. The air has cooled a shade, like linen lifted from a windowsill where it's been drying all day. Down in the square, the lamplighter has not yet begun, but you can feel him nearby. A presence the way you can feel a kettle right before it sings. Bellhollow gathers its edges. Awnings tuck themselves a little closer to storefronts. Shutters tilt for the evening light, and the creek grows silver under the willows, as though the day is writing a final gentle line across the surface of the water. A small market has opened along the far side of the square. Not noisy or crowded, just a handful of stalls that appear only when the air tastes like evening. There's a table of cheeses wrapped in cloth, a basket of brown eggs cushioned in straw, jars of preserves whose labels read in neat, round script: plum, quince, late summer peach. The vendor at the cheese store wears a cardigan the color of doves, and when you approach, he lifts a wedge on the blade of a knife to let you inhale the soft, buttery aroma. You do, and it smells like a meadow remembered from childhood, fresh and green and very kind. You choose a little of this and a little of that cheese with a tender rind, a handful of walnuts, a small jar of fig jam. At the end of the row, a woman in a dusky blue scarf sells butter wrapped in parchment. She stamps the paper with an acorn seal and says, "For evening bread," as if the words themselves are a recipe. You answer with a grateful nod, and the exchange feels complete, like the right page found in a familiar book. The air shifts with a feeling. You recognize, from distant summers, the lightest brush of coolness on your forearms, a hint of water in the wind. You glance up. Clouds have gathered, not dark, only thoughtful, like a shawl drawn across the shoulders of the sky. The first drop touches the back of your hand and lingers there as a cool pearl. Another lands on your sleeve and spreads into a soft star. No one hurries. The storekeepers place linen cloths over their goods with practiced calm, and a few umbrellas open like gentle flowers. The fountain brightens with each new ring on its surface, and the sound it makes is rounder, more generous. That you take shelter beneath the awning of the weathered spoon. From here, the square is a watercolor, edges feathered, colors deepening, lamplight starting to think about arriving. The bell over the door gives its soft, familiar chime, and the man with the calm eyes appears with a towel draped over his arm. A drizzle evening, he observes, as if naming a pleasant holiday. Would a pot of evening rosemary suit? You nod, and he gestures toward the window seat that now feels like your place. The way a chair can become a friend. The pot arrives, porcelain warm, steam lifting in wool-soft strands. Rosemary is not sharp tonight. It is resin and sun-warmed wood, a memory of distant hills. He sets down a small dish of honey beside the cup without a word, the way someone might set a candle in a room already glowing. You tear a heel from your market bread and spread a thin slice of the stamped butter. It glides like cream across the crumb. Fig jam follows sweet round, a little like dusk itself. You taste, and the bite is so simple, it seems to slow time. Grain, fat, fruit, the hum of rain. You take another sip of tea and feel your chest loosen, as if a door inside you has swung open to a clean room. The silver-grey cat Marmalade, by name, though not by coat, has found the sheltered ledge of the tea room's window. It watches. The rain with the content focus of a person listening to a favorite record. Each drop seems to interest it separately. When you lift your palm to the glass, the cat pads closer, its breath fogging a small circle. It blinks slowly, the old feline agreement that says, I am here and so are you, and all is well. Across the square, the lamplighter begins his unhurried round. The rain has taught the cobbles to shine. He touches each lamp with his small brass wand, and the glass blossoms with that steady, honeyed light. He moves from post to post, and as he does, the village seems to exhale. You watch his progress, reflected in the slick stone. The way light makes a gentle bridge from the air to the earth. And you think how rare it is to see a town illuminated by a person rather than a switch. The innkeeper passes by, carrying a basket covered with a linen cloth. He pauses at the tea room door to nod. A fine listening rain, he says. Good for seeds and sleeping. You think of the tiny packet of chamomile you placed on your bedside table and imagine the garden in a few weeks. Small yellow buttons nodding in the breeze. The thought sits quietly in your chest, a seed itself. Inside the weathered spoon, other evening rituals unfold. A couple shares a piece of oatcake, trading the fork without comment. A traveler studies a paper map that has softened at the folds and makes a small note in the margin, a loop of ink that looks like approval. The clock in the corner keeps its patient time. A shelf near the counter holds a few ceramic cups with uneven rims, each glaze a slightly different shade of fog. You run your fingertips along one when you pass, to stretch your legs. The clay hums with the faint heat of recent washing. As the rain steadies, the tea room hum is its own weather. The sigh of steam, the bare clink of porcelain, the muted pad of steps on pine. Your cup cools to a perfect warmth. You take small, appreciative sips, letting the rosemary linger at the back of your mouth, where it feels almost like a word you know, but do not need to speak. You butter another piece of bread, press a walnut into the fig jam, and think of nothing in particular. The window fogs a little where the cat's breath meets the glass. The square, half shadow and half reflection, looks like a memory becoming gentle. When the drizzle thins to a silver mist, you step outside. The awning yields a few last drops as you pass. The evening has slipped fully into blue hour now. The sky a deep bowl, the lamps little islands of golden calm. You walk the creek path, the stones dark and friendly underfoot. The rain has lacquered the willow leaves. Each droplet clings and then lets go in a tiny, decisive fall. The smell of the world has deepened earth, clean water, a hint of crushed mint from a border where someone brushed by. A wooden bench waits near the bend. You sit, feeling the damp cool of the slats through your clothes, and rest your market bundle beside you. The creek is a low voice, consistent and sure. Somewhere upstream, a duck gives a mild, conversational quack, and the sound makes you smile for no particular reason. The mist curls low over the water, and then lifts in a small, transparent sheet. In the far field, a cow bells softly, more, a polite suggestion of a bell, than a sound the ear would chase. Perhaps because of the rain, the village has chosen quieter lamps tonight. Windows are lit in narrow halos, books opened near them like small boats on an amber shore. You can see into a kitchen where someone slices pears, the pear halves going into a blue bowl with a little squeeze of lemon. In another home, a person winds a clock and places a hand for a moment on the wooden case, as if listening with the palm. These are not stories that require endings, only pauses. You return to Willow Loft by the longer loop, because it is pleasant to think the day still has room. The porch boards of the inn give a soft hello under your steps. Inside, the front room smells faintly of candle wax and the clean shadow of rain. The innkeeper has set out small saucers by the door, each holding tiny shells. A note explains, 4 pockets. Take one. It brings the sound of the sea to your keys. You choose a pale spiral that fits the curve of your thumb and feel, unexpectedly, the hush of a distant shoreline. In your room, the window is a dark mirror edged with the pale suggestion of the creek. You set your market finds on the table. The butter's parchment slightly translucent where the rain touched it. The fig jam gleaming like a friendly moon in its glass. You light the bedside lamp, and the shade makes a circle of calm. The packet of chamomile seeds sits where you left it. You turn it over, read the small instructions scatter in cool evening. Invite rain. You smile at the coincidence and tuck the packet under the edge of your notebook as if the words themselves could take root. You wash slowly, the water warm against your wrists, the towel offering that line-dried softness again. When you settle on the bed, you don't yet lie down. You sit with your back to the headboard and open the notebook. Your handwriting is rounder here, as though the village has asked even your letters to be kind. You make a list, not of tasks, but of comforts. The market butter stamped with an acorn, the lamplighter's measured pace, the window cat's fogged oval on the glass, the rosemary steam that smelled like sun-warmed wood, the sound the fountain made when rain taught it new. Rings, the list lengthens by its own calm logic until the page looks full enough to rest. A faint patter begins again, hardly rain more, like the roof remembering. You turn down the quilt, thread your legs beneath its dependable weight, and let your head find the same place on the pillow it discovered last night. The night air has a coolness that makes the sheets feel newly smooth. Beyond the window, the creek returns to its steady whisper. The lamps in the square, you imagine, are trimming their light by the smallest possible amount, keeping just enough to guide a late walker or a cat on dignified business. You close your eyes and picture the garden behind the ivy gate, the bench under the pear tree, the little table of jars with their quiet invitations. You imagine yourself tomorrow morning returning with the smallest spade, making a shallow row and letting the chamomile seeds fall like mild promises. In your mind, the rain obliges fine, silvery, exactant. The earth receives it with gratitude. The image settles over your breathing, which steadies, then slows. Sleep approaches the way the lamplighter does, step by step, soft-footed, carrying a glow that belongs in this very room. You feel it arrive without drama. Your last thought is simple and complete. Here, even the weather is courteous. And with that, you drift, the blue hour moving gently into night. The creek writing its faithful line, Bellhollow, keeping you like a page between two familiar chapters. Morning widens in Bellhollow, the way a calm tide lifts the shore quietly, thoroughly, with a kindness you feel before you name it. You wake to the creek's familiar murmur and the thin lace of birdsong, stitched along the willow's light reaches, across the quilt in slow, warm bands, and the air coming through the open window smells faintly of damp stone and bread just finding its crust. You take your time sitting up. The mattress gives and then holds, the sheet cool at your ankles, the quilt pleasant and steady on your lap until you fold it back on the table by the window. Condensation pearls on the carafe like gentle punctuation. You pour a glass, watch the lemon slice turn once, then drift into a stillness that seems to set the tone for the day. A small card sits nearby yesterday's bookmark from the bookshop, reminding you of herbs and their quiet hours. You tuck it into your pocket, not for keeping your place in a book, but for keeping your place in this morning downstairs. The front room carries the scent of toasted oat and honey. The innkeeper has laid out a little welcoming spread, a plate of fresh rolls on a linen cloth, butter in a shallow dish, a jar of apricot preserves whose sunlight color looks like it remembers summer orchards. He nods as you enter, the kind of nod that feels like a door held open. Market day, he says, and the words themselves feel like a bell rung softly. Take a roll for the road. Outside, the square is already unfolding like a careful map. Stalls bloom beneath striped awning sage. Green, wheat, gold, a soft grand, the cobbles glow with that low morning sheen that makes everything look well rested. The air is mild with many small scents layered kindly. Cut herbs, clean wall, wood polish, cool stone. The brightness of citrus from someone zesting an orange somewhere you cannot see. You begin at the flower stall, drawn by color arranged like spoken harmony. The vendor, a woman with a ribbon tucked into her braid, builds bouquets with an easy conscience sprigs of chamomile, feathery fennel tops, white clover, buttercups, a perfect twig of wheat that adds a grainy hush to all that bloom. When she knots the twine around the stems, the bouquet becomes more than its parts. It becomes a morning you can carry. She offers it to you to test the balance. The blossoms brush your sleeve, and a light dust of pollen turns the air soft and sweet. At the next stall, cheeses rest beneath linen like contented stones. The vendor lifts the corner of a cloth as though revealing a secret kept for the right person. He places a thin slice on a sliver of wood and holds it out. The bite is tender, a little grassy, with a finish that reminds you of standing in sunlight beside a wall of warmed stone. You choose a small round with a pale rind, and he wraps it in waxed paper, pressing the fold smooth with his thumb. For the meadow, he says, not as a suggestion but as a certainty that comforts you. Further along, jars of honey line a table like patient lanterns. Their labels are written in round, faithful letters: Cloverfield, hedgerow, bloom, wild mint. You tilt one to catch the light and see a tiny suspended fleck of comb, a golden raft in a gold sea. The vendor dips a wooden stick for you. The honey rolls slow and complete across your tongue, leaving a story you don't need to translate. You choose a small jar the size you can empty with gratitude and tuck it into your bag. The soap seller waves a hand over pyramid stacks of bars: lavender with crushed petals, oatmeal with chamomile, rosemary with sea salt. You lift a bar to your nose and are surprised by the honesty of its scent. Nothing tries too hard here. You choose a lavender bar and place it beside the honey, content with the way your bag is becoming a pocket-sized meadow at a stall where linens lie in comforting folds. You run your fingertips along a tea towel stitched with a line of little blue leaves. The woman behind the table tells you that cotton was washed in river water and dried in the orchard. It is a small thing to know, and just the size that stays in the mind. You pick the towel with the blue leaves and feel, as the coins change hands, that you have entered a very gentle agreement with the morning. A chalkboard at the end of the row announces new potatoes, rosemary, lemon. The farmer's hands are earth-warm as he passes you a paper bag holding a small portion potatoes with their clean skins, a sprig of rosemary already perfuming the cool air. You tuck the rosemary into the bouquet so its needle scent can speak with the clover and chamomile, and the combination makes you think of a low hill in Sundot before you leave the square. You return to the bakery where a tray of Spelton fig rolls cools in the window. The baker, cheeks still pink from the oven, taps the tray lightly so the rolls answer with a hollow, promising note. She wraps two for you in brown paper and pins the fold with a tiny wooden clothespin. For walking, she says, and you nod, because this is exactly what bread is for today. The lane to the meadow begins where the cobblestones loosen into packed earth. Here the hedges stand back a little, letting you pass with the bouquet tucked in your arm and your market bag at your side. Birdsong moves from tree to tree like good news. In particular, a thrush repeats a phrase you like and will remember later without realizing. The path leads to a gate whose latch lifts with a wooden hello. Meadow. The word arrives as you step through. Grasses sway in slow waves under a blue sky brushed thin with milk-white clouds. The scents here are green and warm and true. You walk just far enough to loosen the village from your shoulders and then choose the shade of a young oak whose leaves keep a dappled account of light. The bark under your palm feels like an old story told well. You unfurl the tea towel and make a small, kind picnic. The cheese yields easily under your pocket knife. The roll breaks with a quiet sigh of crumb. You pour a tiny pool of honey onto a corner of the paper, set a fig-sweet piece of bread beside it, and add a rosemary needle or two just to let the scent rise. The first bite is simple enough to quiet your thoughts. Grain, summer, herb, sun. You take your time with the next one. A breeze passes, not hurrying, and lifts the edges of your towel in a courteous gesture. The meadow speaks in a language of small, repeating sounds. bees stepping from bellflower to bellflower, the scrape tiny notes of grasshoppers rehearsing, the thread-thin chirr of crickets already considering evening. When a cloud drifts between you and the sun, the world cools by a breath. When it moves on, warmth returns with an almost audible yes. You close your eyes and rest one hand over the pocket where the bookmark waits. A reminder that even in a long morning you can keep your place. After a while, you open herbs and their quiet hours and read about chamomiles smiling in full light and resting better with company. The page suggests sowing in evening, inviting rain and patience. You picture the little packet on your bedside table. You picture the garden behind the ivy gate. You picture yourself pressing seeds into the shallow encouragement of soil that thought feels like a nap for the mind soft, sure, already underway. A butterfly pale lemon with a dusting of white settles on the bouquet where it leans against your bag. It opens and closes its wings as if considering a decision, then lifts and travels on. In the distance, a dog barks exactly twice, not alarmed, more like a greeting thrown across a field and answered by quiet. You take another bite of bread, and honey on your tongue. The clover sweetness holds the shape of sunlight. When you finally stand, the meadow rises around your calves and then returns to its own height. You fold the tea towel slowly, as if folding the afternoon into it, and slip it back into your bag. The bouquet has relaxed, the wheat pointing softly toward the path, so you follow its suggestion. At the gate, you pause to listen, the hush, the hum, the gentle arithmetic of breeze and leaf, and then lift the latch home. The walk back keeps the same generous pace. Hedgerows lean in with very bright hints of late summer. A blackbird hops along a fence post, head cocked, as if approving your route. When the cobbles appear beneath your feet again, their familiar roundness feels like the village reaching to take your hand. The square is livelier now, but not crowded. A violinist has taken a corner beneath a striped awning and draws out notes that feel like silk pulled slowly through a ring. Children share a paper cone of sugared almonds, solemn as efficients, pressing each sugared nut into each waiting palm. You stop at the weathered spoon for a glass of cool water with a twist of lemon. The bell offers its round hello. Inside, the air holds a tea-soft coolness, the kind you feel in your shoulders. The man with the calm eyes looks up with a smile that has become a shared habit. A refill for the road, he asks, lifting a small stoppered bottle. You nod, and he fills it with water and a few leaves of mint that tint the glass with a garden's idea. For the pocket of the day, he says. You slip the bottle into your bag and thank him. Marmalade, the silver-grey cat, has found the window's thin sun and lifts one ear as you pass, then returns completely to the business of rest. Back at Willow Loft, the front room keeps a shaded cool despite the higher sun. The innkeeper is trimming the stems of wildflowers to fit small vases, his hands steady, the cut ends making neat, wet commas in a shallow bowl. You carry your bouquet upstairs, and in your room a glass waits as if it knew. You fill it from the carafe and set the flowers on the sill where the light glides along the waterline and up the stems in narrow glints. The room changes with the bouquet. It feels newly awake in a way that asks nothing. You take a quiet hour to wash your hands with the lavender soap, working a lather that smells like folded sheets and a window open to evening. You unwrap the cheese round and place it in the cool shade inside the small cupboard. You write a few lines in your notebook, letting the morning collect itself. Cardigan grey at the cheese stall, honey with a gold lantern of comb, towel with blue leaves that looked like river shadows, meadow speaking in crickets and patience. Rosemary tucked into the bouquet like a hill you can carry. The square whispers through the open window voices at a distance. Measured, kind, you lie back for a short rest, not to sleep, but to practice the art of not moving. The mattress returns your shape. The quilt covers the day without closing it. You hold the mint water bottle against your palm and feel its coolness slip into your hand. When your eyes close, the images remain like gentle lamps. The oaks bark under your fingers, the towel folded along an invisible seam, the wheat stem pointing home. Later, when the light begins its slow lean toward afternoon, you turn the bouquet a quarter in its glass, so each bloom receives its equal share. You slide the mint bottle into your bag, check the waxed paper around the cheese, and tuck the book beneath the bouquet's shadow. There will be time yet for an amble to the ivy gate and the small ceremony of sowing seeds when the day cools. For now, you breathe in the lavender trace from the soap, the meadow air still clinging to your clothes, and the quiet that Bellhollow keeps like a promise. You stand at the window for a long, easy minute, watching a pale moth stitch the sunlight into invisible fabric. The creek keeps its gentle, exact line. Somewhere below, the innkeeper laughs, low and brief, as if the day told the exact kind of joke he likes. You smile without deciding to. The morning has become the noon, has become the early afternoon, and you have walked through each like a path that knows your step. Nothing presses, nothing calls from far away. In Bellhollow, even time seems to carry your bag for you. And so you rest in this small, complete room, where a bouquet drinks light, a book holds the place for later, and you are precisely where the day expects you to be. By mid-afternoon, the light in Bellhollow changes. It slips into a lower register, less about brightening and more about holding everything in place. Shadows lengthen without hurry, sliding gently across cobbles and doorsteps, like a calm hand smoothing a quilt. The air is warmer now, but touched with the faint promise of evening cool. You decide to take the long way to the creek, not because the shorter path has lost its charm, but because here, every turn seems to offer its own quiet introduction. You leave Willow Loft with the small mint water bottle in your bag, the bouquet standing in its glass by the window, its petals faintly turning toward the light in your absence. The innkeeper is reading at the front desk, his glasses low on his nose, and he looks up just enough to nod. The street is a soft mosaic of sun and shade. A baker's boy passes, carrying a tray covered with a cloth that bulges at the corners with the shape of loaves. You catch the sentimental, grain-rich warmths just as he turns into the alley beside the square. The lamplighter, off-duty for now, sits at a bench, mending the strap of his satchel with deliberate stitches. A black dog rests at his feet, tail giving a slow wave of recognition as you pass. At the corner. You pause to look into the bookshop window. Marmalade, the silver-grey cat, is stretched across the counter inside, one paw trailing toward a stack of novels. The shopkeeper is arranging a display of postcards, sketches of the creek in different seasons. You make a mental note to choose one later, perhaps as a marker for this day. The road toward the creek is paved in uneven stones, softened by moss. Every step brings a faint, springy give. Low stone walls flank the path, their gaps filled with tiny ferns and bright spears of grass. The air here is cooler. You can feel the creek's breath before you see the water. Then it appears, a ribbon of silver running over smooth rocks. The sound a steady conversation between current and stone. You find your favorite bend, where a wide willow leans as though in greeting. Its branches trail into the water, parting the surface just enough to make small concentric ripples that drift outward. The bank here is edged with flat stones that have been warmed by the sun, and you sit with your legs stretched out, toes just above the slow-moving edge. The mint water bottle comes from your bag. The glass has cooled in the shade, and the first sip carries a sweetness like a green breeze. Nearby, a heron stands in the shallows, still as a shadow. You watch it for several minutes before it takes a single, careful step, lifting one leg so slowly it seems to float before setting it down again. The movement is a quiet lesson in patience. From somewhere upstream, the sound of a small wooden paddle reaches you before the sight of the rowboat. It drifts into view, paint-chipped oars dipping in a rhythm as slow as the afternoon itself. A man sits at the stern, one hand on the tiller, the other holding a small fishing rod. He tips his hat as he passes, the kind of greeting that needs no words. The boat moves on, disappearing behind the curve where the willow's shadow touches both banks. The sun leans lower, and you notice how the water changes color, shifting from silver to a deeper green, carrying the sky in its reflection. You take out the book from the morning, reading a few pages between sips of mint water. The words fold easily into the day, the sentences like small, steady bridges across the space between one breath and the next. When you close the book, you simply sit. A.B. lands on the willow's bark beside you, inspecting a crack in the wood before lifting off again. The breeze carries the faint scent of lavender, perhaps from a garden farther down the bank, and mixes it with the sharper green of mint growing wild near the water's edge. Eventually, you rise and follow the path along the creek toward the square. The walk takes you past gardens where laundry moves gently on the line, the fabric glowing in the low sun. Someone has set out a small table under an apple tree, with a single chair and a cup turned upside down over its saucer. You imagine the owner will return soon to turn it over and pour something warm back in the square. The market stalls are folding down for the day. The flower vendor's table is nearly bare, but she has kept one small bouquet aside. Its colors, faded in the best way, soft pink, cream, and the gray-green of sage leaves. She hands it to an older man who smiles and tucks it under his arm as though it's a letter he's been waiting for. The air feels like it is holding its breath before evening. You stop at the weathered spoon, the bell offering its gentle note as you step in. The man with the calm eyes looks up. "Early evening chamomile?" he asks. You nod, and he brings it in a white cup with a saucer that rattles softly as he sets it down. The steam smells of apple and meadow. You take your tea to the window seat. The square outside is quieter now. It sounds small and deliberate, the click of a shop latch, the rustle of paper wrapping at the bakery, the soft step of someone carrying a basket home. Marmalade is on the windowsill again, half in shadow, half in light. The lamplighter passes once more, not yet touching the lamps, only looking up as if judging the exact moment to begin by the time you finish your tea. The creek's voice is back in your ears, even here in the tea room. You realize you will hear it in your sleep tonight, the way you did last night, and it will carry you in the same even way. When you return to Willow Loft, the bouquet in your window has shifted its petals again. Following the last of the light, you open the window wider, letting the sound of the creek move into the room. On the table, the mint water bottle is half full. You drink from it slowly, then set it beside the bed. The quilt is cool to the touch, and the pillow remembers your shape. Outside, the lamplighter begins his rounds, and the first glow reaches your window like a quiet assurance. You think of the heron, the rowboat, the bend in the creek, and then you think of nothing at all, because the day has made sure there is no need. Evening gathers itself with quiet intention, and Bellhollow follows, as if the village has learned a lullaby it never forgets. You stand at the window for a moment longer, watching the lamps take their places. The pane is faintly cool to your fingertips. It smells of washed linen and creek air. Across the room, your bouquet has opened into softer shapes. The wheat stem, a little bow pointing toward the door, as though suggesting the night's next gentle errand. You slip the small packet of chamomile seeds into your pocket and smooth a hand along the quilt before you go. The fabric holding a day's worth of warmth, the way a stone keeps sunlight. Downstairs, the innkeeper has laid a cloth on the little table near the door, a square of undyed linen with a narrow blue border. He is cutting slices from a round of bread and setting them in a shallow basket lined with paper. On the counter waits a plate of pears with dusty skins, a bowl of walnuts, a small wedge of cheese very much like the one in your cupboard. The square will be quiet tonight, he says in his low, companionable voice. Supper sits better when the cobbles cool. You thank him and step outside, the doors latch closing with a soft consonant. The sky is the patient blue of a pocket lining. You take the creek path because it has begun to feel like a sentence you like to finish. The willows lean and whisper, drops from the day's brief rains still cling at their tips and tremble before they let go. Fireflies are early small, polite green sparks, peering at ankle height, and then doubtless returning to wherever they drift in the hours you sleep. The market is gone now, though the square remembers it in the faint sweetness of jam, in a ribbon caught beneath a stall leg, in a scatter of straw pressed into a corner where someone had once set eggs on a bed soft as a sigh. The bakery's window glows. Inside, a tray of oat biscuits cools with tiny, secret clicks. You raise a palm in greeting through the glass. The baker raises her wooden spoon like a baton, smiling. You choose a bench near the fountain, whose water has taken on the color of gathered light. The stone is warm under you, as if the day left a cordial note. From your bag you unpack the evening the square provided, the cheese, the fig jam, the small knife whose blade reflects a sliver of lamp. You break a heel of bread, spread it gently cream, then figgened press a walnut into that little moon of sweetness. The bite is slow and round. It has edges that do not cut, only curve. A pear follows, sliced into agreeable crescents. Its juice holds the cool of a cellar, and there is the faintest grit from the skin, a pleasing truth on the tongue. Across the way, the lamplighter appears, not hurrying, strap mended now and slung against his shoulder. He lifts the brass wand and visits each lamp with the care of someone turning down a quilt for a house made of streets. With every touch, a pocket of gold appears. He tips his hat toward you once, and you answer with your pear slice held aloft, the most companionable toast. Marmalade materializes as if the cat is part of the light itself, padding along the bench back and settling into the curve behind your shoulder. You feel a gentle chin press to your collarbone, then the approved installation of a purring engine. The rumble is not loud. It is the kind of sound you feel more than hear, a calibration of the evening. You offer a tentative fingertip. Marmalade accepts, then returns to the essential work of opening and closing sleepy eyes. The weathered spoon is a smolder of amber through its curtains. You take your dishes inside to rinse them at the small basin by the door, an unasked favor that feels like placing a smooth stone where the creek will enjoy it. The bell announces you with its round note. The man with the neat beard glances up, reads the shape of your supper, and sets a clean cup on the counter before you speak. Rose hip and orange peel, he suggests, already reaching for the jar. It carries a light well into the night. You nod, and he pours, and the scent rises rose in the key of fruit. A bright thread of citrus, the memory of a fence warmed all afternoon. You take the cup back outside and sit once more, palms wrapped around heat. The drink isn't sweet, but the orange peel writes its friendly line along your breath, and the rose gentles every edge of the day you might have overlooked. The square has lowered its voice. A violinist closes his case with the careful embrace musicians save for sleeping. Instruments, somewhere a shutter rests against its catch. The sound a wooden syllable that means home. The packet in your pocket says, almost audibly, scatter in cool evening, invite rain, You rise, the cup half drunk and fragrant, and take the lane that curves behind the square. It leads, as you knew it would, to the ivy gate. Tonight the leaves are dusk soft and edged in silver, the kind of edges lamps befriend. The latch lifts with the same wooden hello as at midday. The garden smells of rosemary again, and also of damp earth, and also of night coming gently in. You kneel at the nearest bed, where the soil keeps its daytime warmth in the first inch and a tender cool below. The seeds are light in your palm, polite as whispers. You make a shallow crease with your fingers and let them fall, no ceremony beyond that which your patient breath provides. A firefly glows, then dims, then glows again at the edge of the time. Somewhere a small moth thimbles its wings against the air. You press the row closed with an easy touch and imagine tiny white buttons nodding here in a handful of weeks. Before you go, you pour the last sips of rosehip tea across the seam of soil, not as a rule but as a kindness, and set the empty cup on the bench while you stand to stretch. The pear tree watches as trees do, without need or urgency. Over the wall, the square's lamps sketch a soft geometry against the sky. Returning to the main lane, you pass the bookshop, where the owner has left a dish of biscuit crumbs on the doorstep for whoever finds it agreeable. Inside, on the counter, a single postcard remains propped against the teal pen and ink drawing of the creek's bend beneath the old willow. The shop door is closed, but the card has been angled toward the glass so passers-by can see it, as if the picture is practicing being remembered. You decide, without any need to say it, that in the morning you will buy that card and write your favorite sentence of today on the back. Perhaps the lamplighter turned down the sky like a coverlet. Perhaps the cat arrived when the light did and hummed, or perhaps nothing. Letting the card keep its own quiet, Willow Loft meets you with a thin strand of music, no instrument you can place. More a hum of wood and room and late hour. The innkeeper's lampshades, the front room in an even gold, on the table where he earlier sliced bread. He has placed a small jar of salt and a sprig of rosemary for guests to carry upstairs to their suppers if they wish. You take neither tonight, contented with your pears and bread and the way rosehip follows you like a second scarf. Your room has kept faith with your absence. The bouquet watches from the sill. Its water has climbed the stems a little. You crack the window wider. The creek's tone is lower at night, almost a purr in the throat of the village. You set the seed packet now, light a beside the notebook, and draw the curtain across half the window, so the moon can decide how much to visit. Washing is unhurried. Hands, face, the back of the neck, wrists held under water, warm enough to loosen the places where the day might have fastened. The lavender soap rinses as clean as a promise kept. Toweling off, you notice the tea towel you bought folded on the chair. You lift it to your face for its clean cotton scent and the very faint trace of field it seems to have kept. You turn down the quilt and sit for a while instead of lying down, feet tucked beneath, notebook open on your knees. The page takes your pen without resistance. You make a list because lists feel like little fences that let thoughts graze. Supper on a bench, the pears the call, the brass wand that makes small suns, seeds set like syllables, the willow mending the water, marmalades, treaty signed with a blink. You draw the outline of the ivy gate from memory, a tidy arch with leaves like coin edges. Under it you write, invite rain. When you do slide under the quilt, the bed breathes as if pleased to resume the conversation you paused in. The morning, the pillow receives your head, then holds a fraction more firmly, the way hands do when saying, I've got you. Outside, footfalls pass along the path a pair, unhurried and then fade. A window across the creek closes with a courteous click. Someone somewhere lifts a kettle, then returns it to the ring with a softer sound that says, perhaps later. Moonlight finds the room in thin ladders through the willow leaves. You follow one with your eyes onto the floorboards, where it becomes a pale river running nowhere, running everywhere. The creek's voice threads the quiet, a silver cord you could hold in your palm if such things were possible. Your breath begins to answer in even lengths. You think of the seeds asleep in their shallow row, the gentle weight of soil above like a blanket in miniature. You think of the lamplighter drawing the village toward, rest one lamp at a time. You think of the cat's engine, the heron's lifted leg, the postcard waiting for morning, the towel with blue leaves, the rosemary needle your fingers found and released. Each image settles where a thought might have chosen to stay awake, and in settling, becomes simple. Sleep walks the lane as the lamplighter doesn't hurried, responsible, carrying light that knows how to dim in the room where you are. It opens the gate and steps through, soft-footed. You feel the weight of the quilt, the kindness of the sheets cool, the slow, exact curve of your breath rounding into the shape of quiet. Bellhollow holds you the way a book holds its reader when the page turns itself, and your last wakeful kindness is to let it. Morning comes without you noticing the moment it began. When you first open your eyes, the light is already soft and gold, spilling gently across the quilt and pooling at the edge of the floor. The air through the half-open window is cool enough to carry a touch of the creek's breath, along with the faint green scent of grass still holding dew. You stay beneath the quilt for a while, not out of reluctance, but because the bed has learned your shape, and seems in no hurry to let it go. The sound outside is almost the same as the night before, water moving in a steady voice, leaves shifting in the willows, but there's a quiet thread of movement now. 2. The measured sweep of a broom in the lane. The low conversation of two neighbors whose voices lift and fall like a tide against the morning's stillness. When you sit up, the bouquet on the sill catches your eye. It has opened more in the night, the chamomile faces turned toward the window as if in silent greeting. You rise and touch the cool glass of the vase. Its weight feels right in your hand. You pour a little water from the carafe to freshen it, then set it back where the light finds it best. Downstairs, the innkeeper is arranging a small tray for the front table to rolls. a pat of butter, a dish of jam, the color of summer evenings. The morning will keep, he says. Noticing the way you stand at the door, you understand he means that there's no need to rush anywhere. Not here. You step out into the lane, following the cobblestones toward the square. The air is crisp, but not sharp. It tastes faintly of pears and clean stone. The market is quieter. Today, just a handful of stalls set up with late-season fruit and a few jars of honey. You pass the bookshop, where marmalade is curled in the window again, paws tucked neatly, tail wrapped like a ribbon. The shopkeeper is dusting the shelves, humming under his breath. On the counter sits the postcard you saw last night, the pen-ending drawing of the creek bend beneath the old willow. This morning, it's placed upright, as if it had been waiting for you. Inside, you take the card in your hand, feeling the slight texture of the paper under your fingertips. It's yours, the shopkeeper says with a small smile, if you'll write something worth keeping on it. You nod and carry it outside, finding a bench where the morning light falls in a soft square. On the back, you write in small, even letters, Bellhollow, where the day breathes with you. You slip the card into your bag and take one last walk to the creek. The water is clearer in the morning light, each stone beneath it sharp and bright. A heron stands in almost the same place as before, its patience as complete as the water's flow. You watch it until it moves, a single step, deliberate and sure. The path back to Willow Loft feels like a closing chapter you're happy to return to later. The inn's windows are open now, letting the breeze move through the front room. The innkeeper looks up as you step inside. Leaving? He asks gently. And when you nod, he says, then take Bellhollow with you, in your own way. In your room, you gather your things slowly. The tea towel with blue leaves folds into the top of your bag. The lavender soap is wrapped in brown paper, its scent faint but certain. The bouquet you leave on the sill, turning it toward the open window so it can keep drinking the light. The mint water bottle rests empty on the table, a quiet witness to yesterday's walk. When you close the door, the latch gives a soft click, the same as when you arrived. The stairs creak once in the middle, then think better of it. At the front door, the innkeeper hands you a small package of chamomile seeds, tied with a bit of twine. For wherever you find your next quiet, he says. You step outside, and the lane accepts you again, without question. The creek is still speaking, the willows still leaning in to listen. You walk toward the rise at the edge of the village, the cobbles eventually giving way to the path you came in on days ago. At the top, you pause to look back. The roofs are just visible between the trees, and the lamps in the square, though unlit now, still hold the memory of evening glow. There's no farewell, not really. Bellhollow seems the kind of place you carry rather than leave. You take a breath, feeling it fill the same spaces inside you that the village has been filling all along. Then you step forward, the sound of the creek lingering in your ears like a promise that doesn't need to be spoken. And as the path curves away, you know that if you return, whether in a week or a year, the village will be here exactly as it is now, willows trailing in the water, the tea room's bell waiting for its next round note, marmalade finding the warmest place to rest, and the air holding that slow, certain rhythm that lets you breathe in time with it. Bellhollow will keep your place, just as you have kept it in your mind. And that thought, as steady as the creek's flow, follows you into whatever quiet you choose next.